Good morning. A Saturday morning here in a lovely Sunshine City to St. Martin. I am CJ Cortega. I guess I need no introduction. This is Off the Cuff with my co-host Praveen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a good day thus far. Well, this is a new format that respected Mr. Ortega gladly invited me actually to share the stage with him, and it's an honor to be here.
See, it's Off the Cuff, and we decided let's do things a little different. First of all, the question, St. Martin man, an Indian man said, no. Okay, why? It's about time we broaden the conversation and the people involved in the conversation. It's always in the same little vacuum. And true to my fundamental belief that St. Martin is a political construct, and any and everybody can be from St. Martin. What it takes is your a dedication to building this country, loving this country. Far too often we get, you ain't from here, even me, because someone, you can show me that when it's necessary. So to end all these types of unnecessary and unproductive state of mind, Off the Cuff and CJ Cortega, we just break those chains. So we get that out of the way. We have scheduled for our guest this morning, the Honorable MP Raylan Peterson. However, he was coming from the French side, and yeah, what can we say? Roadblocks, and you got to pay toll money. So if you have a $20 and you don't have change, you might not be able to pass.
That's the story of. That's the story that so many of us sometimes have to bear the brunt of. And like they say, we are on St. Martin Standard Time because of these issues. But nevertheless, we are here introducing a new format that we think would actually involve the common person, all people from the society, because when we use big words or legal words, the common man on the street most of the time really doesn't understand the implications and really doesn't understand the nitty-gritty and the details of certain things. So basically that is where this idea was born from Mr. Ortega, and here we are. Having said that, we are a new concept, a new show, so maybe Mr. Ortega can give you the information concerning how you can join us and help us get to as many people as we can.
Of course. We are in the TVCARIB studios. The number to call is 554-5601. You can also follow this program on YouTube, subscribe to TVCARIB YouTube, like and share, help us grow that channel, and also all other social media forms, Instagram and Facebook. It is the same as our good morning show, and some of our inspiration in doing this, Brenda Allen, and our good host, Prince Martina. Love to give them a shout out. Our inspiration for doing some of this. We always have these big comments in the program, so let us put ourselves in the firing block and on the firing block with regards to our positions and how we feel about things. Since we're waiting on the good MP, let's talk about it. I know you don't want to talk about it because, of course, our society and this victimization. let me first state my last post. I was downright threatened for having an opinion, and sorry, I am not going to ever be silenced. Any attempt to silence me gonna just make me go in even more. But having said that, we know the sensitivity in talking about a certain subject. Since we like this thing called public secrets. Everybody know, but nobody talks about it.
Correct. It's mostly done behind hush-hush, well, like you say, we can call it the hush-hush conversations, but hardly it comes on the forefront. So, what is your hush-hush
no hush-hush
conversation?
Let me just, what kind of person records their friend? You see, we always going to put a different angle on things when we having these discussions, because these are the discussions that lead away from the real subject, right? So let's have those discussions, put them to bed, and then we could focus on what's necessary. What type of environment would you need to be in? What type of people do you have around you that you have to be confronted with something like that?
Well, as far as the recording or the privacy is concerned, it all depends. It all depends if it's public life, if it's private life. What are the discussions that are going on when it comes to that? Obviously, when in public life, you have to be very careful, because the repercussions and you are in public life basically. So but when you're having a private conversation, I don't see why a friend or somebody would record you.
That is where I want to carry the conversation again. What type of environment are we looking at that this is what you have around you? Have you created an environment where people feel they have to look out for you, or they need to have something over your head? The obvious is the obvious, but sometimes my brain just gets stuck on these simple things, like what kind of environment are you in? What kind of people do you have around you that this becomes a reality?
See, again, I would mention the same thing, but it all depends. Somehow we have created this kind of environment ourselves, but then again, it all depends on if you're in public life or if you're in private life. Now, the point you're trying to get at is exactly, let's get it off the hooks.
Okay, the conversation has been made public. Okay, we question the motives for a second. However, the reality is that conversation has been made public.
Yes.
And what my concern is, okay, is very specific with regards to what I heard. It is insinuation of the abuse of power. That's my major concern. The blatant outstating who ain't getting permits and who ain't getting no permits, that puts a stain on the integrity of that body of government. Subsequently, the very incriminating remarks with regards to what the minister of Romy will eventually do, having been put in a very strict line by Parliament. And that is a segue that one of the reasons we invited Mr. Peterson, because of that motion which curtailed the activities of the minister, and given direct guidelines. In my opinion, one of the first real actions from Parliament is to give their ministers a clear direction what they want done, and then to hear in such a tape that this will be defied. It's all a big show, and eventually the minister gonna still do his thing. That piece there is damaging and damning.
Well, how I see it, or rather how I would say, of course, is that since then, I guess we are referring to the President of the Parliament. I would not say, I would say leaked conversations, basically. My point would be there was wrong done, apparently leaked. The individual has taken responsibility. The individual has done the honorable thing, and he has stepped down from his position. And having said that, you have to also understand that he is still going to be a member of the Parliament, which means he is still going to be representing our people, basically.
No. So right there, I'm going to pull up the handbrakes. Why I'm going to pull up the handbrakes? Right there, because this whole conversation that I'm having is about the representation of the people. It's about Parliament giving a minister a clear directive, and insinuations being made as to this is not going to be our reality. Now, in our society, we have seen often enough that everybody doing Wild Wild West. So this adds to my question mark as to where are we going? How are we now going to guarantee that the whole land issue be resolved in a democratic way and by means of the Parliament's advice and direction? Because it was clearly stated that ain't going to happen.
But to that, hasn't the PFP, they have actually, they have a motion that says, rather it has a timeline. If I have it right, I think it's the 1st of December, by which a clear policy needs to be made as it concerns the giving out of the land.
Zusha, good morning. Jean-Marie, my sister in Holland, she's tuned in. Big smile on your brother's face. Hi. Jojo, good morning also. I saw Alma Charles telling us congratulations. Thank you. So let me get back to it now, because...
well, if I could
go
finish
ahead,
my comment. So basically, like I was telling you, there is a motion that was brought forward by the Party for Progress, and which requires the concerned minister to have a policy. I think there is a timeline to it, and so there is, like Parliament here works basically as a watchdog to see that policies are implemented. First, that the policies are there, and second, that they are implemented correctly.
So now the Honourable Member of Parliament, former President of Parliament, is now going back as an MP.
Correct.
So, are we now putting the fox in the henhouse?
Again, I would just say that there is always the Parliament. You know, he is not going to be alone in the Parliament. There are other members in the Parliament, which will be questioning, or rather, which will be making sure that things go right.
Okay.
So when it comes down to the Parliament, it's not about one individual or about any deals. There are obviously it's a combination of other parties which have their views.
Agreed.
So isn't that enough to have like a watchdog kind of situation where all parties are watching on exactly how this will be done?
Yes, and agreed. But what I'm doing, I'm just raising awareness to the fact that we have this motion passed, and that the motion has a deadline and a time frame on it.
Correct.
And we need to stay vigilant if the minister complies with the request of Parliament. Just a second, the Honourable MP is just outside, so
you might want to read some of the comments that are coming in. Firstly, let me say hello to Yo-Yo, to Jean-Marie, to Alma Charles. Thank you for joining the live show. We would like to also remind you that you can call in if you have any questions to our respected guest, which will be joining us very soon. The number to call is 554-5601. That is the extension. That is the phone number to call on the studio line. So very shortly we will be joined by our respected guest. And Mr. Ortega, Ms. Jean-Marie here is asking, what has this individual taken responsibility for exactly? Would you like to comment on that question from Jean-Marie?
Well, Zusha, that's a appropriate question and a good question. It's you see, like for example, we teach our kids to apologize, right? They do something, they tell them to say sorry.
Correct.
My antithesis is I don't allow my children to tell me sorry when it was your objective to do that. Now the outcome was wrong. Doesn't mean you have to be sorry. Just deal with the consequences.
But don't you look at it that the first step to improvement should be being sorry, and then working towards
yes,
what needs
the question
to be done
is what are you sorry for? For having the tape being leaked, or fundamentally for what was said. For example, my person, I have been publicly, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, I was at some points upset with the decisions of our Prime Minister, to the point that I felt sometimes I got disrespectful. My person and the licks that I got from the people around me, my apologies were public. Because he put things in context, I didn't actually mean that, came out wrong, I was emotional. However, it was up front. I didn't get caught in the sidelines and then have to force to do it. I was out there, I said what I said, and retracted. You could beat me on the fingers for having said it or retracted. It was in the moment, but I was not caught in anything.
I would just make a small comment on this. See, when something like this happens, I just want to know, it is really fair that you stick to the individual act, or you stick to the individual person. There is no need to involve anybody's personal life, family, friends.
Agreed.
For example, just stick to the individual in any case. Well, having said that,
yes,
our respected guest is here.
Good morning, Mr. Peterson, the Honourable MP, is in the building. Thank you for joining us, Honourable MP. How was the traffic?
Good morning. Well, as you know, I told you I came from the French side, and unfortunately we do have some blockade still, but it's a peaceful protest, so the boys are not doing anything too wrong. But it had to take me a while to get here. I had to pass 3 checkpoints.
Did you have to pay any money at the bottom?
I did have to pay a $2 fee.
Seriously?
You had change?
I did have change.
Because we were concerned that there would be no change.
Well, actually, I did not have change, but I asked them for change, and they kindly gave me the change that I was supposed to get.
I'm not being
let me just say this right off the top. You young fella them come into Parliament, and are you coming with this Macamba style thing and want to do things based on law, based on policy, based on transparency? Who you think you be? Want to shake up the way things is being done, Mr. Destroyer?
You know, it's unfortunate that That
Did you call him
is
Mr. Destroyer?
He's
Did
a
I hear
destroyer.
that?
well, that's good
Yeah.
because at I believe I had a radio interview last week and they called me the Hatchet Man.
Oh,
I,
oh,
so that sounds a little bit more assertive, but
You
you
should
know,
actually
nonetheless.
copyright that
praise
name.
it.
You
I
know,
mean,
they'll make a movie out of it.
I have been saying the man moving in there with machete and things, so the hatchet man's kind of appropriate.
It kind of falls in place, right?
That's a new one. So basically, we were just discussing about the recent developments that we saw during the week with our, well, now I should call him the former president of the Parliament. What are your thoughts? And just give us your views, since you already were demanding
Yes.
a public meeting to discuss this issue.
Yeah, you know, well, it's very unfortunate how it came about. You know, of course, we all know of the video / voice note that was leaked last week. When it came out, I immediately saw that the chairman could not continue in his role, given his current personal status. You know, I don't want to get too much involved in somebody's personal issues, but that being said, you know, you are the president of the parliament, and you know, me as an MP, I do have my own job, and that is to make sure that the level of parliament stays up to par. You know, we have a vision for what we envision parliament as the highest legislative body, the standards to be. And at that point in time, given the statements that were heard, I do not think that the chairman was in the right capacity to continue with this role. So what did we decide to do? Of course, everybody asked within the weekend, what is PFP doing about it? What are we saying? Because we were the last ones to bring out a press release. You know, other MPs, other party boards, they decided to come and condemn the actions, asking to resign. But as an MP, I've realized that talking doesn't really give you the results that you need. You know, so, and that's something that the PFP faction has always been very keen on. Enough of the show, more of the action. So therefore, in the weekend, MP Melissa Gums, she came up with the idea to say, you know what, this is something personal. This should not be made a public spectacle. So therefore, she wants to call a faction leaders meeting with all of the relevant parties and the chairman to discuss, you know, the issue. That they did. She asked for the meeting. She got the meeting on Monday. They had the faction leaders meeting. What transpires in the meeting is of course private, but it came out that the chairman at that point did not see the need to resign as yet. As I said, PFP was very you know, decisive as to what we were going to do next. So we already had a public urgent meeting request in place. In which we decided to go to all faction leaders of parliament, so not only opposition or coalition. We really like to make that take that distinction out of it when it comes to these type of
you always want to walk across the line.
Exactly.
What with this new school thing and looking
you know,
for consensus, and so
hopefully-
I don't know what's wrong with all you. I
You know,
really upset.
hopefully it catches on to our colleagues
it's
because
across the board walking
because-
and these professional type of moves and no drama, no
Diplomacy,
diplomacy. I mean,
geopolitics,
who you think you be trying to raise these standards like that?
you know, it's very unfortunate that we think that working like that in parliament is seen as raising the standards, because I think that should be the norm. That should be the norm.
Beautiful
You know,
response.
that's how it was supposed to be. You know, we have the Constitution, Article 44, and it specifically states all of us, all 15 of us, represent everybody, the entire population. You know, so not only our political parties or our members or those who voted for us. And so to that extent, like I said, we the faction leaders meeting happened, didn't bear any result. We had the public meeting request. We went to all faction leaders, all except one signed on to it, with the simple topic to discuss the chairman's position in parliament. So not to make it a public show, etc. The plan was very simple: to address the chairman publicly then, and it was to be called Friday, to ask him to resign. If he would have not resigned, the PFP was ready to take the necessary steps. Whether it's a motion or letter, we were ready, you know, but hopefully it did not reach to that point, in which we kept asking the chairman, kept making it clear that we do not want it to reach to that point. And Thursday he kind of saw the light, so I'm glad that the meeting did not have to take place anymore, because St. Martin would not have to be subjected to another public debacle. I think we've had enough of that for the last month.
Okay. Just to get some information, I do have some follow-up questions on this, if you would like to indulge yourself. So, you had a request for a public meeting for this. Now, seeing that the individual has stepped down from his post, what is the next step? So, what is the status of that request for the public meeting? I guess it should be.
Yeah. According to me, I have to confirm this with MP Gums because I did not go to the office on Friday. But according to me, since he resigned and since we received the letter of his resignation, the urgency of the public meeting, it's gone. You know, so we do not want to hide behind the formalities. If there's a public meeting called for a specific topic and the topic is fixed, let's say, before the public meeting has to start, then let's not subject people to a show just to do what we have already done. So the status of the public meeting is, I think the public meeting request has been cancelled, and what we are doing now is I'm urging a new public meeting request to elect a new chairman, because that's how it has to go. You know, you have to get 3 MPs to request a public urgent meeting as per the rules of order, and I think it's Article 6, Section 4, it says that within 4 days of the rules of order, you would have to call the chairman then, and in this case it would be the vice chairman, which would be MP William Marlin, but he is off island for surgery. So the second vice chairperson, which is MP Grisha Helga Martin, we have to address to her that she has to call an urgent public meeting for us to do the re-election of a chairman and vice chairman and second vice chairman.
Now, just one thing that we heard a lot, obviously, in social media, and we get a lot of questions from social media. There was a kind of, I wouldn't call it rumor, but there was a kind of concern that the article, I think it's Article 2, that states that for any urgent public meeting, it's the President of the Parliament that has to concur. And he decides the date and the time of rather
Yes.
the nature of the urgent matter.
No, well, that's actually not true. And if you could look at the rules of order, we have the rules of order of Parliament, and in Article 6, it basically states about let's say, the authority of Parliament. And the authority of Parliament in Article 6 basically says that the whole of Parliament can, within the parliamentary term, move the chairperson. So I had this discussion with the SG because, like you said, it was peculiar to me to understand what his role is, what his actual role is with the calling of this meeting and whatnot. Because, let me see if I can pull up the article, because then you guys can just
By the time
see
you're
it.
pulling that up, I just ask you a question and then you can obviously respond to it at the same time. Now, basically what has happened is the President of Parliament has become a member of Parliament.
Yes.
What is the difference that it's going to make vis-a-vis any alleged conversations that were leaked? Who is going to be the watchdog, or as usual you will take the title of the destroyer,
of course.
how it works?
Yeah, just oh, sorry for that. I had to put it on the side. Just a side note, I found the article. It was actually Article 33 of the Rules of Order, Section 5. It says that when, as Parliament, when we decide to call a meeting, to our opinion, as an urgent meeting, it's not up to the chairman to decide the, let's say, the intricacies of it. So if we say, Chairman, 3 of us, so it has to be a minimum of 3 MPs, 3 of us want a public urgent meeting for this topic, then actually the law, the rule of order, Article 33, Section 5, it actually obligates the chairman to call said meeting because it has an urgent matter within a time span of 4 times 24 hours. So in theory, the chairman would have been obligated to call the meeting that we requested on Monday, the latest on Friday.
4 days, yeah.
So I did not want to go down that route again, because then we would not know how to continue. You said let's give the chairman the benefit of the doubt and let's see if he would reach that point. But yeah, that article was also ready to be thrown.
And the question of what difference it makes.
So to be
Vis-a-vis.
to my opinion, I think that the difference is going to be in the character of the person, because the rules of order in relation to the Constitution, it gives the chairperson of Parliament not power but a sort of formality when it comes to the scheduling of meetings. So he is the one who is in contact with the Secretariat, with the Griffier, and they decide what topics are going to be discussed on what day. They have to be the ones in contact with the ministries to see if they have the answers ready to come back, but also with the third parties to see if, for example, the airport would want to come back with the Prime Minister to answer questions if they're ready. You know, so it's basically the formalities around the scheduling of the meetings that is the chairman's job. A big misconception is that the chairman has power in Parliament. He does not. Every single bit of his extra power is a formality that is placed in the rules of order. So it is basically a bigger responsibility on him because he is, let's say, the face. Because just like a board, you have a board of 5 members. You always elect a chairman amongst the
Hence
board
the word
members.
chairman, yes.
But by the end of the day, when it comes to a vote, it's 5
vote,
votes. The chairman doesn't have a doorslaggevende vote or a vote that counts higher,
Higher.
you know, and that's something that people really need to understand. And of course, I like to also put it in perspective when it comes to the salary. The salary of the chairperson is only 5% higher than that of an MP. So it's not that big of a difference. That extra 5% is basically meant, de bedoeling van de wetgever is that is compensation for his extra work alongside of his regular work as an MP. So it's not a job to be entitled to. It is actually you are chosen to take up that function, you know, for the parliamentary term.
Okay, that's clear enough.
My
You have
question,
any questions?
yes, trias políticas, is it functioning on St. Martin? I think we have a call. I'm not sure. Oh, we're going for a break. So we're rookies, so that we see the red light go on. We didn't know what exactly it meant. We're
Yeah,
going for a break,
had to run out,
and
there was a fire.
and we'll be right back.
See you soon.
Esta semana el show de Naila y Allen viene espectacular. Sí, porque los niños estarán desde un parque. Viene el viejito Salomón hablando de lo nuevo de Allen King y también sus historias. Rayito Celestial nos trae un nuevo consejo. El mago André Magic viene con magia para ti. Y muchas, pero muchas ocurrencias esta semana en el show infantil que está atrapando a todos los niños. El show de Naila y Allen. Sábados y domingos a las 4 de la tarde por TVCARIB Latino, TVCARIB y todas nuestras redes sociales.
make it blow. Think of it, dream of it, in the morning, night and noon. St. Martin is sweet home, and to it I'll give my life to keep on shining with the sunshine that comes out in the morning. We made a sacrifice to get it where it is now. With our smiling faces, we shared some hard times.
Off the cuff with Cedric and Praveen, our special guest for our first show, MP, the Honorable MP Rayon Peterson. I wanted to, before the commercial break, I wanted to go into one of my favorite and not so favorite topics with regards to our new 10-year-old constitutional status and the application of and the understanding of our trias politicas and how this function. Why I say that? Because some years back, I remember that the MP France came with amendment or some changes to the labor law, which in my opinion is the task and the role of Parliament to introduce and where necessary to amend laws. What I saw was a minister on the floor of Parliament, completely redesigning, repackaging, reframing a law as minister and presenting it to Parliament. Now, in my humble opinion, as we were discussing working across the aisles, if a minister sees the necessity for certain amendments in a law, he then is required to reach out to Parliament, lobby, explain himself, get Parliament on board, and have Parliament, whichever faction, whether it's his or whatever, present a law again or with these changes, and Parliament approves it. I was out of my mind, confused, and up to today. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I saw a lead there stand hijacking a law as a minister. That there is where I saw that staatsinrichting, staatskunde is even void amongst a majority of our parliamentarians toen the tijd. Now, again, you coming in with your policies and your legal framework and understanding these things. So tell me if I'm wrong, because you're the destroyer.
Yeah, no, when it comes to the legislative role of Parliament, I like to basically explain it a little bit to the people what it actually is, because people have the idea that Parliament has to be the ones to mainly initiate laws and basically bring the laws forward. That is not actually what we call the bedoeling van de wetgever, the intention of the legislator. Parliament, as the legislative body, is the co-legislator in a country. And what do I mean by that? Basically, the role of Parliament in the trias politica is very simple. Legislation cannot be established, emphasis on established, without Parliament. So, what the law basically intends is that you have ministries who are busy with the executive duties, and within those ministries you have a staff. It is assumed that the ministries have capable staff, and then I refer specifically to legal staff, legal affairs, which is a department in government, and it is alluded that most of the time, if a law initiative, if they want it to be a full law with all of the research done, so it's just something that you can send to the Raad van Advies and not basically get an answer to say, no guys, you got to go back to the drawing board. We as MPs, we as individual MPs, we do not have a staff to do specifically that. In my personal case, for example, I studied law. So if I come up with an initiative, I know basically how to go about it, and I can find my way, given my contacts, to come up with something decent when it comes to wetgeving. Because wetgeving is very different from advocatuur. But to that extent, I cannot say the same for my colleagues. So if you have other colleagues of mine, for example, who already have, let's say, a difficulty understanding Dutch, then to come up with an initiative for ordering is something that you cannot really expect from them, because you're basically setting them up to fail. And whether or not this is something that every NP should be able to do, that is a difference of opinion. I find that if you want to postulate yourself, at least you should inform yourself of that process specifically. And then see if it's something for you, because it is not an inactive job. If you want to do it, you actually have to do it right. It's very intense. So to that extent, I see, for example, now in my case, where we have an initiative or an amendment proposal, most of the time the amendment gets passed how Parliament wants it to get passed. But you do have the possibility for a minister to give comment on it. And what I assume happened then is that the then minister, and of course I'm not agreeing with it, because like you said, the trias politica, there's two fine lines between it. And when it comes to the executive branch and the legislative branch, they like to step over the line. The judiciary branch, that one, we can say it's separated, but when it comes to us, and this is something that we see amongst the MPs, amongst the ministers, MPs alluding to having deals with ministers, stuff like that is exactly what the trias politica is against. So it doesn't matter if you're an MP in opposition like myself or an MP in coalition, you're not supposed to have any deals or any talks or anything that has to do with the Council of Ministers' executive decision making. Why? That is the separation of powers. Clear cut, you do not have any say in executive role, and they do not have any say in the conscience that you're going to vote when you have to vote for the motions or the laws that are going to be proposed. proposed. That's how it is. What we like to do with the Team of St. Martin is basically refine the terms to our own opinions, and let's just leave it at that.
Do you think a solution voor dat is een Eerste en Tweede Kamer type verkiezing op het eiland? Like we elect parliament and then separately elect ministers, so that both entities are responsible to us, and not that it is a Cedric was placed there, so you owe me.
Yeah, you know, we've thought of that, but the main problem that we have with St. Martin in regards to that is that we see politics as a sort of a popularity contest. So it would make it, let's say, for example, we have that, you would see a significant amount of votes going towards ministers, and the attention would be lost from the legislative body. But the law basically states that the highest, not the highest in hierarchy, but the one that has the oversight in all of it is Parliament. So we are the bosses of the ministers. In the case that if they do not enjoy our trust, and if there's wantrouwen, distrust, then they have to go home. They can't do that to us unless the Prime Minister invokes Article 59, which is only to be used in very, very extreme measures. Also something to be looked at when it comes to St. Martin. You know, with that's also where electoral reform would have to come in play.
Great. Praveen?
Okay, so we're going to move to the next hot topic, which is going to be the salary cuts and the verdict of the constitutional courts. Now, you know that the verdict was concerning the 3 national ordinances in connection with the cuts to the employment benefits of the public sector and the semi-public sector. Obviously, the court has found that these 3 laws are not trampling Article, if I get it right, 15, 16 and 17 of the Constitution. Your thoughts about it? Just a side note that if I remember it correctly, was it MP Bekamper that had mentioned on the floor of the Parliament that these laws should be reviewed after, I think it was 6 months or after a year, and
to see if they're still, let's say,
correct,
timely. Yeah.
And the nature, which is always sadly in St. Martin, is temporary. Your thoughts, and what are the things that can be done, or that could, well, now it's that can be done now by the state and or the Parliament to reduce exactly this temporary nature of the cuts?
You know, it's the verdict of the Constitutional Court. It is I have mixed feelings about it, because as an MP, you know, I have a job, but as a civilian, as somebody who's also part of the community, I also have my own sentiment. Now, for me, legally, the verdict was not a surprise. Why do I say this? Because the Constitutional Court, and this is much like, for example, the Eerste Kamer, because we could say we have our own Eerste Kamer in the sense of the Constitutional Court, not in, let's say, the exact same structure, but that a national ordinance gets a second check before it gets ratified. And that's basically what the Eerste Kamer also does. And in our case, for example, when the temporary national ordinances came for us to vote on, at that moment in time, we had a big liquidity problem. So as an MP, you can be a civilian and say, no, cuts, no way. I cannot agree with that. We have a contract. You're supposed to pay me my money regardless of what happens around it. I am 100% in agreement with that. When it comes to overeenkomstrecht, that's it. You have to follow what you put in your agreement. Okay. But then you also have force majeure. And that is something that the pandemic caused. And I know that when it comes to the legalities of things, that also plays a role. So the Constitutional Court, although they can not agree with the sentiment, and if you read the verdict, you can see that they give government, the blame here. Oh, there's no poverty line established. That's you guys' fault. Oh, there's no reserve. That's your fault. But by the end of the day, when it comes to the verdict, they don't really have a lot of wiggle room, because the law has to be interpreted in a certain way. So force majeure is something that basically we fell in. So the Constitutional Court basically said, although we as Parliament felt that we were forced, that we couldn't make a decision according to our own conscience, the law basically gives you the absolute ability to do that. So if we really did not feel that these temporary landsverordeningen should be passed, we should have voted no. And to that extent, I have to stand by my vote then, because I knew the country's liquidity situation. If we did not pass those, there was a political standoff with our own Prime Minister and the Kingdom. We as Parliament don't even have to do anything with that. That's the fun part, that wasn't even our responsibility. We were just used, to my opinion, to have some weight behind the Prime Minister, you know, because on the Kingdom level, our ability as a local Parliament is very, very limited, something that has to be addressed in a democratic deficit as well. So coming back to the verdict, when I saw that the verdict was that the temporary landsverordeningen were not unlawful, I said, damn it. You know, I would have wanted to see what would have happened if the Constitutional Court did say, you know what, guys, these landsverordeningen, we can't go back. We have to go back to the drawing board, because then we would have put some pressure on the Kingdom, on Holland per se. You know, so I really wanted to see how it would have gone that route, but you know, nonetheless, the Constitutional Court has spoken. What my follow-up question is, what's the government going to do about it? Because as an MP, of course, I can have my opinion, but I'm opposition. As I said, I don't have a staff, I don't have a legal, I don't have anything to do with the executive decisions that are going to be made. But I do remember, for example, the Minister of Finance saying that there was a reserve put for 5 million guilders. 5 million guilders. Exactly, in the budget. So that reserve was made in the case of us losing the case, the Constitutional Court. But we won. So my first question is, what is going to happen with that reserve? And my follow-up question, right next to the first question, is that money going to the persons that these landsverordeningen pertain to? Because that is a choice of government, you know, and I think that people like to think that because there is a court case, that government is now limited in what they can do, but government is the one who has to take the helm. So if government says, you know what, guys, we lost, we won the court case, so we don't have to pay out, but we did reserve it, so I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm not saying give everybody the full vacation pay, but a sentiment of government saying, you know what, guys, I feel with you. I'm not going to hide behind the law, which is, I think, something that our Council of Ministers does a lot. The Minister of Romy did it with the people who supposedly received bad documents given to them by a minister, you know. So you really like to switch the focus. Exactly. We really like to switch the focus on what the action was, which is that, yeah, the action was not okay, it was unlawful, you had to fix stuff before you reach there. To me, it's about the character, it's about the person. In this case, it's about government. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to meet the people halfway? Are you going to hear the cries that we have out here? Or are you going to say, we have the law, dus wij moeten dit niet uitgeven, so we can basically use this money for another project. And then is where we're going to have to ask the questions again as MPs, and whether or not you're in opposition. I think that that's something you have to really look at.
Like my observation is, you reserved 5 million. If you had the capacity to reserve that 5 million, then knowing and understanding the peculiar situation we're in, the legality of it, milieuramp, we were forced in this position and we could not do nothing. However, for example, the Constitutional Court, regardless of the decision, nobody wins.
Exactly.
That's my sentiment.
Win or lose is a lose-lose
situation. It's a lose-lose situation.
Exactly.
And now, indeed, what kind of compassion, what kind of sentiment is the government now going to show to these civil servants? Because let's face it, after a hurricane and our economy basically going down to zero,
it's a hit after hit.
It's a hit after hit. So I understand the sensitivity in which our government finds themselves. However, your ability to maneuver within the
That's
limitations.
why you have to lead. That's called leading. You know, leading does not mean hiding behind the law, because here you have a government basically telling the people, you know, I would love to meet you halfway, but you know, I have a court case in my favor. In my favor, exactly. So it is up to you to how you're going to
And
use
again-
it. If you reserve the 5 million, to my opinion, from the moment you reserved it, you should have known that 5 million is not going to come back into the coffers. Regardless of what happens, it has to go out to the people.
Yeah,
and if you have been upfront about that since the beginning, since the budget, we would not even have these conversations. The Constitutional Court and everything around it, the whole case would have been, let's say, in a more positive light. Because either way, komt goed mensen, there's some light at the end of the tunnel before we even get judged. You know,
Exactly.
so that's
And
it's just character.
And to assume assuming a position opposite its civil I don't understand that.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. You do not take a position opposed to those who are basically the wheel.
apparatus, yeah.
They are the machine behind you. You understand? They are everything, and that's something that we as government, I think, we have forgotten in this last 2 years. And of course, you can blame it on the pandemic, but the people come first.
Fundamentally,
So, exactly. It's really a thing
know?
of principle. You know,
Exactly.
it's really a thing of
the
principle.
constitutional. Again, I saw this as okay. I understand the position. From the time you subject to the material, then the rules change.
Exactly, it changes. The same with the state of emergency.
Yes,
the rules change. The rules
so
change.
I understand that. However, at no point did this need, or is it an adversary
It does
thing?
not obligate you to take the hard stance that we are taking at the moment.
There you
and
go.
that's where that's the crux of it.
Yeah, agreed.
I just had a quick 1 or 2 questions just for the common person to understand this. I'm just going to quote a few lines from the verdict that is a little bit out on the page of the Ombudsman. So a few lines states, it will become increasingly clear what the actual effects of these national ordinances are on the life of the ordinary citizen of St. Martin. This will undoubtedly influence the decision as to how temporary these national ordinances should ultimately be, and that both the St. Martin and the Dutch governments will not lose sight of the human dimension.
Yeah.
Also quickly to mention that the court in its verdict has also mentioned Article 119, which is kind of allows the citizen to basically, I would not use the word challenge, but kind of ask the court to have a look at these cuts and decide if they were right. So this is one of the questions. What do you think about this? And the other question was, what would be the scenario if we would have said no, we don't want to accept these conditions? Obviously, we know that we needed liquidity, but we could have, stand our ground and said, okay, fine, we don't need this, we need the liquidity, but we don't need it under these conditions. We know that the bond was floated for the same, which was negatively advised by the CFT. So quick question, do you think that there was an appetite for this kind of a bond, and what happens if we would have refused the conditions for liquidity?
Well, refusing the conditions was always an option. I like to tell people, listen, as Parliament, you are not obligated to follow government at all. So government can have their deals with the kingdom. Government can sign contracts with the kingdom. That's fine. But when it comes to Parliament, we need to, like I said, like Cedric always refers to, we have to go back to the trias politica. So my conscience as an NP, if it does not match with that of government, then I do not have to vote for it. And when it comes to these salary cuts, I think that that's something that was always forgotten. People kind of saw Parliament as the support for government because government portrayed it as such. Government basically came to us every time. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the COHO proposal? What do you guys think about the Landspaket? But that is not our role. Our role is not to be part of the negotiations when it comes to the kingdom. That is only for government.
Executive.
Exactly. It's pure executional. And if you look at the Constitution and the Statute doesn't even mention us. No. It only mentioned us in regards to our own Constitution. So we do not have a role on the kingdom law at all. The only role that we can have is, I think, according to our own constitution, I think it's Article 67, in which we can step to the Tweede Kamer, so our peers in Holland, and for them as their legislative body for the kingdom, to then basically fight for us. So when we come back to the Landsverordeningen, Article 119, like you mentioned, it's something, I mean, it's from the Constitution, right? So it's basically a very touchy subject, which they call the toetsing van de Landsverordeningen en van de Grondwet. Toetsing is basically comparing a law to a higher law. The Constitutional Court basically compared the temporary Landsverordeningen to the Constitution, and to make sure that everything falls in line. In Holland, they're not allowed to do that. Er is een verbod op de toetsing op de grondwet. So that is not up to the judge or up to the Tweede Kamer. That is basically a check that you can say is done in the Eerste Kamer, but only in the Eerste Kamer. So we, although I understand where the Constitutional Court is coming from, these things are stuff that you have to really be careful with. Because to put a judge, a rechter, in the seat to say, okay, I am going to now assess this national ordinance based on the staatsregeling, then the trias politica comes into play again, because how big is your role as a judge when it comes to the ratifying of legislation, proposed legislation? The judge has a very specific role to play. And the Constitutional Court, therefore, is a very specific body that you can only go to the ombudsman, etc., because it's set up in that way so that not anybody can just go and say, this national ordinance, I think it might be not in agreement with the grondwet, thus we're going to stop it. Because stopping a national ordinance is something that we like to do. We like to send initiatives, and it will take, right now in Parliament we have 120 something, 130 something pending legislations, and this is only coming from 2010. So it shows you that the follow-up that we want, it's not there at all. We go back to the legislative authority of Parliament. How many initiatives have we presented, and how many have actually been ratified? Less than 10% have been ratified. Less than 5% have been ratified. Why? Because we as MPs, we like to come up with an initiative. It goes out into the public, it gets praised, we say, yeah, it's going to go to the Raad van Advies now, no problem. But after that, you don't hear from it anymore. Why? Because most of the time, the Raad van Advies says, you guys did not do the necessary research, you did not go to the specific stakeholders, you did not go to, let's say, the SER, and this concerns something sociaal-maatschappelijk, you did not get some legal advice when it comes to the numbers, so please go back to the drawing board and bring something, a little bit more concrete. When an MP gets that, they decide, you know what, nah, it's not worth it. Governments might drop in the next 6 months to a year, so we're just gonna leave it there. But we really want to follow up on it. So right now, for example, we're busy with the SER. We're working on laws in regards to the screening, in regards to abortion, but we want to get the sentiment of the stakeholders first. And once you get that, and then once you draft something, then you can work with it, So we really want to show in this term how to do an initiative law from scratch. So that is also something to be looking out for.
Well, the time does fly so fast. I have a couple of fundamental questions. So
yeah, let's try to speed it up a little bit. We have a call.
No, we don't have a call. That's a personal.
Okay.
What I want to say is we're going to have this conversation again and a little bit more, because you segued into something that I really want to talk about, but we're running out of time. So we are definitely going to have the Honorable MP back in the show.
For sure.
We get 10 more minutes? Oh, please, thank you. You segued into onze Tweede Kamer. Relatie bouwen met de Nederlandse Tweede Kamer, om meer toegang te krijgen.
Diplomacy, geopolitics, sure.
I have been thinking more in that direction as I mature and become more conscious of how the world is working. Wouldn't it be advisable that we develop better relationship with Tweede Kamers in Nederland, affiliate maybe with some of the political parties, and even to the point that maybe within the next 10 years that we don't have a minister plenipotentiary, but we have an actual functioning parliamentarians representing St. Martin on the floor of the Tweede Kamer. For example, Jorien is now in de Tweede Kamer in Nederland. And I think it's a missed opportunity that we didn't send her with our full support and a mandate. I know the character of the individual. She will do everything
For sure.
To represent
Our love
us.
for the island is
That's
impeccable,
unquestionable.
for sure.
We don't have a question there. But us as a body, as een entiteit, als lidmaten, als overheid, that we didn't have a mandate from us.
Let's
You
say
know,
we're behind you.
we behind
Yeah,
you.
Let's go for
This
it.
is, you
Yes,
know,
yes.
and so I think instead of us talking about verder afsplitsing or separation, I think more inclusion, especially on a fundamental political level, will give us better results. We will have the Parliament of Holland fundamentally understanding how we live, how we stay. So minder douchen wordt niet gezegd op de vloer van de Tweede Kamer in Nederland, for example.
Sure. No, I 100% agree with you, but of course, here in St. Martin, and given the political nature of things, when we promote that, we are dubbed as the Dutch party. I already told people I have no relations to the Dutch, other than that I was born in The Hague, and when I was 1 year old, I left. So, I grew up in Curacao, I've been living here in St. Martin, I only studied in Holland, but that being said, that did not take away me going to Holland and learning from the system. I learned that, like you said, relationships are key. Relationships when it comes to international politics in general, it's key. Communication is key. So most of the times when we have these discussions in Parliament, you hear me allude every time to guys, let's go back to the table. Let's contact them first before we decide that it's a fight. We like to think that it's a fight. And I always refer back to Article 67 of our Constitution. It's a very general article. And it just states, de staten zijn bevoegd de belangen van St. Maarten voor te staan bij de regering van het Koninkrijk en bij de Staten-Generaal. That's it. So it gives us as a local parliament the ability to lobby with our kingdom, and I'm not saying only our kingdom partners, but the bodies, the Tweede Kamer, like you said, we are the legislative body. And when it comes to kingdom law, who is the legislative body on a kingdom level? Not us, but the Tweede Kamer. Yep. So if the Coho is going to come, for example, if the Landspakketten are going to come, for example, and we want some say in it, why do we wait till after the fact, till it goes through the process, goes to the Tweede Kamer, and then we want to jump up and say,
No,
but
we don't
wait,
like that.
we don't like
No,
this,
no.
this goes against our autonomy. Why did we not lobby up front so that when the vote came into the Kamer, our opinion was already there?
Exactly.
You understand? And that's how you have to work within the Constitution, within its frame of what the statute gives it. That's where the hierarchy of laws comes into play. People don't like to look at the statute, but the statute is basically telling you a lot of things. You just mentioned our plenipotentiary, our chef min. A lot of people don't know that our minister of plenipotentiary has zero say when it comes to the Rijksministeraat.
Yeah.
He has an adviserende stem,
Adviserende stem.
raadgevende, and that's it. So there is no veto at all. The only thing that he can say is, I think that this proposal really hits St. Martin, so I would like to stop it until we. That's temporary. By the end of the day,
Gaat het door.
exactly. And if people don't understand that our role on a kingdom level is so limited and our power is so small that not lobbying only puts us in the corner, because literally they're not going to worry with you. You're going to be the little kid that's going to be crying, no problem. Mommy and daddy are going to do this. So when you're done, let us know, because this was going to happen on a kingdom level. If we decide to continue with that type of behavior, then how do you expect Holland to keep treating us? Just like they are now. You guys want something? Okay, no problem. Liquidity. Because you guys don't have money. Okay, you guys need this done? Okay, no problem. Liquidity. We're going to tie it all to money and all of these conditions that we cannot basically put on you. We're going to do it because you don't have any money. That is not Holland being, let's say, evil towards us, although we might be of that opinion, but that is them being strategic.
Yeah.
That is them being politically strategic. And I'm saying they are playing chess.
And the scandals don't help.
Exactly, and every time a scandal comes up, you know what Holland does? They sit back and they laugh.
You see, they just
They
have
sit
to
back.
say,
They sit back and they laugh. They let the NOS and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
let everything do it for themselves.
Yeah.
You don't see any minister of Holland or any MP from Holland give any comments on what we personally do down here as MPs. But we like to mention all of their names when it comes to our own local parliament. That's
we end up doing basically what we think they want to do to us.
Exactly.
But it's actually we doing it to ourselves.
Averechts,
With these
that's what we call it. Definitely.
One last question.
Yes.
seeing the reality of the pay cuts, the question is out there. It's been asked
That's
on
the
several
famous topic.
platform. The ministers and the MPs, have they taken their salary cut?
They took the salary cut that was proposed since last year. The cut was taken, but like I said, and I've been publicly vocal about it, it's not enough. I tell people, listen, my salary is a government salary. My salary is about 19,500 guilders brutto per month, so you can, figure out what it becomes netto. But that is our salary, and we're public servants, as MPs. So I don't see the need for secrecy when it comes to that at all. It's in the law. It's in the law, everybody's salary is in the law. Our salary is this percentage above SAL 17, TD20. The chairman and the regular ministers get 5% on top of that, and the prime minister gets 5% on top of that. That's how it is. So this whole, secrecy and about, but the MPs, no, guys, we know what the salary is, let's cut it down. We have the highest salary in the kingdom, people, and we have the lowest minimum wage. Exactly. We have, our salary is higher than those in the TVCARIB, the SXM, Curaçao, and in Aruba. And then they say, when you compare it to Holland, they say, yes, but they have perks, and they have, no, if you count up the perks, it doesn't even add up to that, because we have perks too that we don't use. So let's not create the misconception that we need our money. But if we want to leef mee with the people, then I say leef mee. And our original proposal in last year was 25. Yeah, we lobbied, and after we lobbied, it was apparent that it wasn't going to reach there at all. So we said, let's maybe try 15. And yeah, we all saw how that one went. So, unfortunately, that's how it is. And to make a cut in your salary, you need to have a legal basis for it as an MP. And therefore, me and MP Guns, we just do it personally. We try to help the Party for Progress Foundation. Our donations, we just could do it through there just personally. But, not to make it a show and to make it seem as like, look, guys, I'm donating part of my salary. No, that doesn't bear the results that we would want.
So the cuts have been applied to the salaries of the MPs and or the ministers?
I can't speak for the ministers, but to us, I did see last year when the cuts came into play. But to be honest, the cuts, how they were put, you don't really feel too much of it as an MP. It's basically taking off the perks that you could have had, etc. And
it's a manier van doen.
Exactly.
Where I was coming from was, if the cuts were already applied to MP salaries, then they don't need to worry about the retroactive nature.
Exactly. We as MPs do not need to worry about that at all.
But they do need to worry about the retroactive nature of the cuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, we're running out of time.
Last comments from from your side about the famous UN petition. We have a lot of things, but I think...
I think I should come back, definitely.
We need to do this again.
Your quick comment, we can discuss in detail about it the next time, but how famous is the US petition and what's the status?
What we understood the status was, is that at this point we are still in contact with the UN, supplying them with additional information that they requested. I've been very vocal about this whole UN debacle. I think that it is unconstitutional. I think that we were not even allowed to do this as a parliament. The law doesn't give us that
initiative of the chairman, I think.
Yes,
the former chairman.
Yes, the former chairman. So they interpret the law in a way that they find that according to Article 44 of the Constitution, because Parliament represents the whole island of St. Martin, that they are allowed to internationally portray themselves as the representative body of St. Martin and of Parliament. But if you look at the elucidation, the motive and toelichting on the article, it specifically says this does not mean that you can interpret this in a privaatrechtelijke zin. Literally, that's literally... It literally says so. And the fact that they are telling me, but it's a difference of interpretation, it is not. No. It is one of the things that is very clear.
It is
exactly, because who has international rechtspersoonlijkheid when it comes to St. Martin? Not us.
Nederland.
Prime Minister has to talk to Holland. She is the only one that has to talk to Holland when it comes to these things. So if the UN comes with an official response, and then we're going to go a little step before that, St. Martin cannot step to the UN.
No.
And not to mention there is not even one expert, kingdom law expert.
Exactly. So we are going to now go to the UN with a sob story and think that they're going to help us out. The UN is not going to help us out because the kingdom is our international representation. So
Correct.
who they would have to address after this UN debacle, whether or not they have their right or wrong, the kingdom. And they have to be the ones to relay it to us. So I'm saying, guys, if we're going to do this as parliament, why put the prime minister in such a position that now she has absolutely no idea of what's going to come, what the narrative is going to be, and then what's going to happen? We're going to do the same thing that we've been doing now, coming back to parliament before we even do something that is actually internationally applicable and thus not parliament's authority.
Not to mention
So,
the fees involved.
listen, $7,000 on retainer a month.
all right.
I have my
Yeah,
the
objections
hatchet
to
man
that.
is coming for
The
that one
hatchet
too.
man's coming. And with that, let me say this: Andrew Dick, also one of my inspiration. He calls me the PFP cheerleader with my pom poms.
The destroyers.
And of course, as a destroyer myself, I always love people who turn things up, but in a positive way. And that is why I've been watching and observing the way you and Melissa do things as PFP. Patch off, no drama, the way things need to be done. It's a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, in our society, the level of professionalism is often looked at with a negative condemnation. Your moves and everything you do, the motions, everything are in the best interest of St. Martin. However, far too often people assume ulterior motives. Let me say this: when you observe a man with his offspring, you know he will not sacrifice his integrity or his character when you watch a relationship with his offspring. Having said that, I want to say thank everybody for joining us in Off the Cuff. Praveen,
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, respected.
And can I just
MP.
make one last comment?
Yes, sir,
sure.
Go ahead. Your closing comment.
What you just said there, Cedric, I really think that's important, and this is a public service announcement. Anything that you see PFP do in Parliament, whether it's a motion or going at ministers or reaching across the board, PFP has zero intentions to join any new government or any new coalition, or zero intentions to drop this current government. We do not have those political aspirations, and we want to make that
So
clear. You see us coming with a motion against a chairman or whoever, that does not mean we're trying to drop government. Actually, the contrary. We are not going to sign on to any new government that is going to be formed. So whether you guys hear those talks or whatnot, just know that PFP is not part of it.
So
I just wanted to
officially,
make
you're
that clear.
denying the
There's no-
title of the destroyer and basically claiming to be a watchdog and representing the people.
Yes, sir.
doing
Yes,
his
sir.
job accurately. That last sentiment, it's unfortunate that anytime you're doing your work properly, these
I
type
have
of
to, yeah.
innuendos come
Yes.
up. It was not even a part of my thought process, otherwise I would have addressed it. Thank you for addressing
That
it.
happens more than often.
But it is, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Continue doing that. You and Melissa are doing an excellent job. You have my full support. Everything that you've been saying has been clinical, technical, emotionless, and on point. Thank you, good
you,
MP,
viewers.
and continue
Thank you,
to do
MP.
your
Thank you
job.
guys for having me.
This was Off the Cuff. Prefer?
Do join us next Saturday. We didn't have enough time with the respected MP, so we will invite him again, and hopefully another guest very soon. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy yourself and keep wearing your mask and keeping safe distance. We are not out of the pandemic yet.
Get your vaccine if you're not vaccinated.
For sure, do that. Have a good day, gentlemen. And
Bye.
viewers.